We're in volume 7 of my set of books, Bible story. They're all blue. This one has a representation of Mary and a toddler Jesus. I should have sisters and brothers on it for me. And then Joseph on the back at his work table. And he's got some work. Got some shavings on here. He's brushing some off and got the plane in his hand. Okay. We are in part 3, story 9, Wedding Suprise. That's what it says. Okay. By this time, Jesus had been away from home many weeks. Now, as he drew near to Nazareth again, I am sure he looked forward eagerly to see the familiar old place once more and greeting his mother at the gate. But it was not to be just now. As he and his little band of followers climbed the steep, winding road from the lake, they came to the village of Cana, Cana, just 6 miles or so east of Nazareth, where they had been invited to a wedding. People in their best clothes were going into one of the houses. Ox carts were parked outside and donkeys were tethered here and there. Looks as though has been here already. I can hear Peter say, "What a lot of guests. Wonder if there are any here we know." It was Then it was that Jesus caught sight of Mary, for she was at the wedding. Oh, he saw his mama. "Mother," he cried, greeting her with gladness. How happy they must have been to meet again, though Mary noticed at once how he had changed. He looked older and thinner, yet still he was her own dear son. Probably had his sisters and brothers there too. Okay. "Meet my friends, I sure," Jesus said, introducing Andrew, Peter, John, Philip, and Nathaniel. "Come in and welcome," said Mary. So Jesus and his friends sat down among the other guests, to some of whom, no doubt, they were strangers. "This is Mary's son," whispered one, nodding in the direction of Jesus. "I hear he's become quite a preacher." "Yes," said another. "Some say that he preaches even better than John the Baptist. Maybe he will speak of our maybe he will speak in our synagogue some day. We must get the rabbi to ask him." It is true, John the Baptist. It Is it true that John the Baptist said he is the Messiah? I heard so, but I never thought the Messiah would look like that. Is the Messiah coming as a king? So the guests may have talked as they ate the good things provided for them at the feast. Meanwhile, Jesus, ever friendly, chattered with those around him, letting them see that he was glad to share their happiness. By and by, Mary came over to where Jesus was sitting and whispered, "They have no wine." She looked worried, and no wonder. This was serious, just as though your mother found that the pinch the punch was gone halfway through your party. Yeah, that would be a good example. Okay, for years Mary had counted on Jesus to help out of difficulties, and he had never failed her. Now, mother-like, she turned to him again, and sure and so sure that he and so sure was she that he would know what to do, that she said to the servants, "Whatever he says, do it." Pointing at 6 large stone jars standing over it by the door, near the door, Jesus said, "Fill the water pots with water." The servants looked at the 6 jars and back to Jesus. What can he mean? They wondered. Does he understand that it is wine that is wanted, not water? But Mary had told them to obey, so they did. After they had gone to the well and filled the 6 big jars to the brim, Jesus told them to pour out some and carry it to the man in charge of the feast. This must have seemed a very strange thing for him to say. And then it has a picture. Okay. Hair slip. Well, that's the one that does the darker one. Hair slip. And this is the darker image. Has more dark shadows and stuff. I know, art nerd going and dissecting the paintings. But that's the illustration that's on here. Okay. And one place the jars were as big as people. I've seen them a little, well, about 5 feet tall. But some people think they were 6, 9 feet because they were used for baths. Okay. Let's get back to the story. Okay, give me a second. Okay. The servant must have wondered whether they should do it or not. What would the master of the ceremony think if they turned up with a jug of water? But again they obeyed, and something wonderful happened. As they tipped up one of the water pots, they noticed that the water had changed color. "Look," they said, "it isn't water, it's wine." They tasted to make sure that it was all right, and their eyes opened wide. What wine this was! Amazing and happy, they carried it to the man in charge and poured some into his cup. He tasted it, and his face lightened up. Never had he tasted such wine as this. Calling the bridegroom, he asked why he had kept the best wine till the last. But the bridegroom, astonished, wondered what the man was talking about. He hadn't kept any wine at all. He had thought it was all gone. There had been Where had this wine came from? Who brought it? Wine like this wasn't to be found anywhere in Galilee. Soon all the guests were holding up their cups for some of this delicious wine and asking the same questions about it. But nobody could answer them. That is, not until the servants began to talk. Then the guests crowded around the 6 stone water pots. "You really fill these with water?" they asked. "Yes, all at the well. And you put nothing else in them?" "Nothing." and then you poured out the water, it had turned into wine? That's the way it was. We saw it with our own eyes. A miracle, cried everybody. A miracle. And it was so. The Bible says this beginning of the miracles did Jesus in Cana of Galilee, and manifest forth his glory, and his disciples believed in him. Yet it was no miracle to Jesus. It was no more difficult for him to turn water into wine in a water pot uh, than to do it in a grapevine. He was just beginning to reveal his power as the Son of God. And then has an illustration of up here at the top. It's got the bride in it. And I think it's a watercolor. That's just me, art nerd. Okay. And let's turn the page. And that was the end of part 3, story 9. So it's the break time. So I'm going to break, and I'll be back in just a bit.